Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Doomsday Clock issue 3. Now we get a little flashback to Watchmen where the comedian is thrown out of a window, setting off the entire events of Watchmen. But this time he splashes into the harbor of Gotham Bay and he survives. Dr. Manhattan is there to greet him. Now we pick up where we left off last issue and Lex Luthor lays injured on the ground. Ozymandias and the comedian are fighting and the Ozymandias makes a very bold decision to escape the situation rather than go through the fight. And he does it with his little kitty cat friend too. And he crashes onto a car where he appears to be severely injured. Now Batman and Rorschach are in the Batcave talking, and Rorschach doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but he hands over Kovac's journal to Batman and tells him to read it. Meanwhile, the Mime and Marionette have escaped their confines from the Night Owl vehicle and are set loose upon Gotham. We also learned several other things. A new person has come forward to reveal their ties to the Department of Metahuman Affairs, and that's Lady Clayface. Now, interestingly, we are juxtaposed between what's going on with these riots and the Nathaniel Dusk film series, especially the last one, The Adjournment. It seems to play a subtle role in the storyline the same way that the Black Freighter did in the original Watchmen. It's another mystery story within the main story. There is definitely something related to this Nathaniel Dusk incident in the main story, and I'll get to why in a second. Now, Alfred shows Mr. Rorschach to a room where he's allowed to shower and get cleaned up and all that, and make himself comfortable, and Batman's going to go adventuring with him, and they're going to have a sort of a weird team up. Then we're back to the movie again, and the issues outside, but before we get too far into that, the Mime and Marionette go into a bar to have a drink, and they're trying to be really relaxed about the whole thing, but the locals don't care for people wearing makeup in there because this bar is run by the Joker gang. And of course the Mime and Marionette are forced to kill everybody in the bar because that's what they do and they like it. So they decide to find the Joker, and that is a horrific idea for a team up. Meanwhile, while there's these old people arguing over whether or not they want to watch the news or they want to watch this Nathaniel Dusk movie, there's one person who is standing at a window looking out and wondering why his family didn't come. And we know who this person is because his name is given. And who is that exactly? Well, younger readers probably won't be familiar with Mr. Thunder. That's Johnny Thunderbolt, and he used to have a magic pen with a genie in it, and he misses him, and he accidentally did something to make him go away. We don't know what, but I think that plays a very important part in this story, and that's why they keep going back to Nathaniel Dusk. Well, Batman and Rorschach go visit a certain Arkham facility where Batman walks out, but Rorschach doesn't, and it does not go well. But that's where the issue ends. Now, interestingly, there is a small little, what seems like a fluff piece at the end where there's these little articles about the death of Carver Coleman, who played Nathaniel Dusk. And they don't actually state what his deep dark secret was, but he did have a hidden room full of clocks, and there was a letter in there that was like an extortion letter from somebody, and apparently he lied about who he was. But there's some interesting things at play here, because Nathaniel Dusk was a character in the DC universe. There is a old miniseries, I think from the 80s, about Nathaniel Dusk, and that might actually have some relevance to what's going on now. But there's also a little gem hidden in here, and that's the name Ted Grant and the name Frank Rock. Frank Rock is Sergeant Rock of Easy Company. He was a World War II comic book hero that went, I think, until the late 70s, and I think maybe there were some stories in the 80s about him, but it was a fairly long run series. Now, Ted Grant is Justice Society of America's Wildcat. Now, we haven't seen much of the Justice Society in the last several years, so a lot of newer readers may not be familiar with them. They've been hinted at for years now in this Rebirth storyline. If you look back at the Batman Flash team-up called The Button, in that storyline, we get a glimpse of Jay Garrick, the original Flash. And now in this storyline, which is of course related to that button, we have mention of Ted Grant, we have a sighting of Mr. Thunder, and we have references to other elements. They had hinted at a few other things throughout the years. Saturn Girl apparently is an Arkham Asylum, but this is the most interesting thing to me. They're hinting at the Legion of Superheroes in the future, but we're getting these little hints of the Justice Society popping up throughout this book and throughout throughout the larger DC universe. So in the button, which is kind of a prelude to this story, we had Jay Garrick. In this issue alone, we've got Nathaniel Dusk, we've got Ted Grant, and we've got Sergeant Rock. And it's alleged that there was some sort of conspiracy tied to Frank Rock's death. So there is a lot going on here that they could really be playing up with some of the older heroes that we haven't seen in a long time. Sergeant Rock really hasn't had his own series in a very, very long time. And much like the Creature Commandos and G.I. Robot, every now and then they might pop up, but they really don't get much play. Here there seems to be some greater thing at play, possibly involving Sergeant Rock's death and the Justice Society of America. So that would be really cool to see the Justice Society resurface. And I'm curious to know what the Thunderbolts connection is to this and who Dr. Manhattan is posing as in this universe. So I was real interested in this. It's got me real curious. I'm excited to go to the comic shop and pick up issue 4 and see where that leads us, because Jeff Johns is doing a great job keeping me in suspense as to what's going on. And I really hope this is a ploy to bring back the Justice Society and some of the other older heroes that the old timers like me have been missing. But until then, that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. Please be sure and hit like, share, and subscribe. And we hope to see you on the next episode.